Just double checking my notes. Want to make sure I don't forget anything. Hey noble ones, welcome back to my channel. This is the Metatron speaking, always defending unbiased truths versus insanity. In the last few years, we could say that this channel has had a certain evolution of sorts. It has expanded from ancient military history, culture, weapons, armor, and the occasional debunking in top 10, to also including discussions on ethnicity, inclusivity, gender, racism, religious figures, you name it. The channel hasn't necessarily changed its core topics. I still make my vanilla videos, but it has expanded its horizons. Although, if you really think about it, my controversial videos are very much related to my debunking videos, because I mean, how different is it really to complain about how historically inaccurate a late 16th century burgonet helmet is on the head of a 8th century Viking, to complaining about the change of a well-established historical character ethnicity? They are both historically inaccurate and they both misinform. Show the past for what it was in order to avoid misinformation and making sure you educate properly. Right, so that explains why I'm so passionate with my controversial series. For example, the video where I talk about inclusivity and history being a bad match. Meaning that if you take a historically white character and you blackwash him, or you cast him with a black actor or even an Asian actor for that matter, in order to be more inclusive, you are in fact violating the truth and you are changing historical facts. Okay, but then shouldn't I also be against whitewashing? Shouldn't I be just as passionate against whitewashing, if not even more? Isn't whitewashing itself, so the idea of taking a historically black character and make him white, a very wrong violation of the truth? Absolutely. Whitewashing and blackwashing are both wrong. Okay, so having established that, some people who watch my videos dedicated to this kind of topics have posted two, I want to say, rather relevant questions. Question number one: if you're so against bending of truth, then why don't you ever talk about whitewashing if you are also against it? And question number two: why the focus on blackwashing history? Is it because I'm racist? Is it because I'm white and therefore I must be a white supremacist, and so I only have a problem with blackwashing but I don't have a problem with whitewashing because I'm a hypocrite since I'm white? No. First of all, let me debunk the first statement, because you have no idea how many people in the comments said that. They accused me of never speaking against whitewashing. So, I have this many videos on these topics. Do you want to know in how many of these I've also condemned whitewashing and racism? Take a guess. In all of them, every single video. There hasn't been one time on this platform where I've talked about blackwashing history where I haven't also at the same time condemned whitewashing. Now, of course, I don't expect you to believe me, but I also don't expect you to go back and watch every single one of those videos just to make sure, so I've done the work for you. Check this out, from my most popular video of this series: for the same reason I wouldn't like an elf without pointy ears, or a tall dwarf, or a white Gengis Khan. Absolutely ridiculous. They don't fit with how the character is supposed to look. On the same note, I think John Wayne as Gengis Khan is absolutely moronic, given that I also complained about Romans being represented by English actors. In the video titled Slavery, Blackwashing, Roman Laws, Duels, Languages, okay, a bit of a complicated title, but on this video, I said, just as much as it is stupid to take a Zulu warlord and paint him white. On my video on inclusivity and history at a bet match, I also said, be kind to each other, aka don't be an arsehole. Don't bully people just because they are different than you. I'm all for that. I'd like to propose that a good, balanced stance would be historical accuracy. The filmmaking industry is going from giving us a 100% everyone must be white production to we need to include every single possible type of person, and in doing so, the pendulum is gone past historical accuracy completely to reach this filtered fantasy tale that it's just as bad. And remember, two wrongs don't make a right. On the video, The Truth About Black Africans in Ancient Rome, I also said, the reason why this is controversial is because there are a lot of people who are trying to bend history, change, cherry pick, or completely ignore the historical facts to push forward their own agenda. When this is done to push forward racist ideologies, obviously that's a huge no-no. But it is also not okay when some people start changing the facts even when they do it to push positive things. Still, there are other ways to do that. A professional historical approach to archaeological and iconographic data just states the fact in the most unbiased way possible. On my video where the ancient Egyptians black, the truth, I also said, a cauldron of personal bias and lies on any sides of the spectrum. Not how you do real and professional academic work. I unite with my white brothers, my black brothers, people of all ethnicity that value the truth. And even on my video where I was discussing Jesus' ethnicity, so the historical Jesus, what he would have probably looked like, I have a whole chunk of the video dedicated to debunking the white, European-looking, blue-eyed Jesus, followed by a section where I also debunk the idea of using revelations as representation or proof of Jesus being black and African. So I debunked both, understanding that probably would have looked like a Middle Eastern man. This proves without the shade of a doubt that I also condemn whitewashing. It isn't something new that I've decided to say now because I'm like, oh gosh, I'm getting some backlash, so I better start speaking about whitewashing too. No sir. I've been speaking against whitewashing too consistently since the very first time I decided to venture into this topic in 2018. Now that we have addressed the first question, and I also created one single reference point for all of those who say you never speak about whitewashing, so they don't need to go and check out all of my videos, one place, this video, everything proven. Now I can address the second question, which is a fair question. Why are your videos, where you mention both, still a bit more focused on the blackwashing side of it, rather than just focusing entirely, for example, on whitewashing? Well, here's the reason. I believe that anyone with a brain will recognize that whitewashing was done, is still done, and it's incredibly wrong. In a film industry which, if you look at it from its very first production in 1908, Hollywood production that has been mostly dominated by white people, white actors, white everywhere, I think it's quite obvious that a whitewashing was a consistent problem. When you look at it in the 30s, in the 40s, in the 50s, it was complete nonsense. People who weren't white weren't welcome, and that's a historical truth. Every person with a brain and a minimal understanding of history will recognize that. It is wrong, but I think we have achieved, as a civilization now, a recognition of that. Try and type on YouTube right now, whitewashing doesn't exist. You will not find a video. However, and this connects to the actual answer to the question, try and write the opposite. Type, blackwashing doesn't exist. You'll find videos on YouTube, multiple videos on YouTube, and a lot of articles claiming that blackwashing doesn't exist. That's wrong, and that's why I'm fighting it. There are several channels I'd like to respond to, and also I'd like to mention on this video because they have got videos on this topic. With some of these content creators I wholeheartedly agree, with others I strongly disagree. Now luckily not all hope is lost, because someone like T1J has an amazing video about this and he raises some really good points that I hope I'll be able to raise too on this video. And even though he mostly talks about, again, the fictional section of this, he does mention the historical one, and I really appreciate the way he was intellectually honest about all of this, so again, great watch. The general idea of this video that I'm trying to defend is, when it comes to historical characters, please leave them as they are. If they're white, leave them white. If they're black, leave them black. If they're Japanese, leave them Japanese. When it comes to fiction, then I would divide it in two. You've got characters that belong to a very well-established cultural heritage, which is myths and legends of the past. Unfortunately, these have been hit both by blackwashing and whitewashing. Blackwashing, for example, when they represented Zeus and Achilles with black actors, even though we know that the ancient Greeks represented Zeus like this and Achilles was supposed to be a blonde man. And then you have the production behind Gods of Egypt, where, again, all white and Caucasian actors were used to represent the gods of Egypt, which, to be honest, pissed me off, because they could have had blue skins, green skins, gold skins, red skin, black skin. What a missed opportunity. Of course, this is mythology, so you're not really hurting a historical character, so I'm not as angry as I would be against blackwashing or whitewashing an actual historical character, like turning Martin Luther King white completely defeats the whole purpose of the story. And on the same note, representing Julius Caesar or Julius Caesar and the ancient Romans are black is also dangerous, because it misinforms and it changes historical facts. But when it comes to mythology and ancient myths, I would still leave them as they are. If we are discussing gods and myths and heroes of Africa, use African people. But when it comes to modern modern fiction, I never have a problem, for example, when I see a black person cosplaying a anime character. Also because I would be rather of a hypocrite if I did have a problem with that, even though, I mean, so many white people also cosplay anime characters, and at the end of the day, anime characters are supposed to be Japanese. And before people say, well, yes, they're supposed to be Japanese, but a lot of anime characters got blue eyes and blonde hair, which is not really Japanese, is it? That's true, but then again, you're kind of focusing on the hair and the eyes, but what about the nose? I've got a big nose. All anime characters have got tiny little noses, which is a lot more like the Japanese are. I mean, when I was living in Japan, so many Japanese would stop me in the street and tell me, wow, you got a big nose. So when it comes to cosplay, we are just having fun. It doesn't matter. And when it comes to that, the YouTuber Sleepy Mia has a very good point when she says, when I see people complaining about black artists representing, for example, Peach from Super Mario, but black, they say, well, that's a misrepresentation because Peach is not black, so that's not realistic to the character. But then none of these ever complain when Peach is represented with big boobs. She has a point there. I have to say she has a point. And the same point is brought forth by a YouTuber such as Veridis Joe, and he's great. I mean, I like his points. I dislike his choice of topic because he still puts forward this idea of blackwashing doesn't exist. Blackwashing does exist, but blackwashing is only a problem when you apply it to historical characters, and in my opinion, to a certain extent, historical mythology. But even though I disagree with the choice of title, I still agree with the points that he brings forth in the video, not all of them, but most of them, where he talks about the fact that, you know, when you are cosplaying a character, just let us have fun, and I agree. I have no problems with that. It's not a problem when it comes to education. And therefore, I would, in theory, agree with a person such as Black Nerd Problem, a creator such as Black Nerd Problem, where on her video where she talks about the fact that it is bad and it's such a shame when you have a historical character who is black, or in general a person of color, and then they cast a white actor for it, because it kind of removes very much of the historical background that is behind that character. So why do I say in theory I agree? Because I do agree with that statement. That's why I say whitewashing is wrong. I just wish she didn't have to say the following statement. And they leave us with this dry, dusty, flower flavor, vanilla, tasteless shit. Her own words to refer to white people. Not the way to go. You're being aggressive and insulting. And therefore, I cannot recommend this video, first of all, because of her overall attitude, which is rather off-putting. And secondly, because even though some of the points she makes are actually sensical, the overall stance of the video is rather hypocritical, since even though she talks about historical and cultural background, still her position is, when white do it, is wrong. When black do it, it's okay. And I cannot support that. Then another thing she does is that she brings up this idea that black kids need black heroes in order to feel represented. Now, I agree and disagree at the same time. So I don't think there is anything wrong with the idea of being represented. I mean, I would do it with new characters and new stories rather than taking an established character and make them black. But then again, it kind of depends on how it's done. Like, for example, I have absolutely zero problems with Spider-Man being Miles Morales, so a person of color, because at the end of the day, it makes absolute perfect sense within that story. We're talking about a multiverse. Spider-Man is already a character that has had 3 different iterations across lots of different universes, so it doesn't really matter. In that specific story, I have no problems with it whatsoever because it fits the character. However, if you take someone like Daredevil and you turn him black, I feel like it's weird because we are used to that actor, we are used to that role, we are used to the way he is represented and the way he talks, and if he becomes black for no reason, it's weird because he wasn't brought up as a black person, he wasn't brought up among black people. It becomes a completely different story. His whole connection with the Irish and the Catholics it becomes weird. It doesn't fit. In that case, I prefer a character like Luke Cage, who he's supposed to be black. He lives in Harlem. That's just the way it is, and I love that story, and it's one of my favorite Marvel stories, and I don't need a white character to be there so that he can be my favorite. I don't need it. And this video that you will find very easily, again, link in the description, brings forth the same idea. My favorite character has to be the same ethnicity as me, otherwise I don't like them. A very flawed approach. And at the end of the video, she states very categorically, blackwashing doesn't exist, race painting doesn't exist, I call it a good thing. That's what she says. Not a good thing if you're changing historical characters, no matter how you put it. And this connects to the article I'd like to share with you. Check this out. So this is from Vox ATL. You'll of course find a link to everything I'm mentioning in the description. And it says, blackwashing versus whitewashing, just what does this mean? At the heart of this topic is the importance of visual representation in media, from the smallest television show to the biggest upcoming blockbuster movie, through video games and textbooks, everyone wants to be represented. I have found that when I am engaged in any of these forms of media that I will attach myself to the first ethnic character I see, only to discover that these attachments are menial compared to the variety of characters that actually exist. The #Representation Matters report by the National Research Group states that 2 out of 3 black Americans say they don't see themselves represented in the various forms of media. I agree with that, but I still think that the best option is let's make movies about African civilizations and let's make new video game characters and anime characters who are black. Let's not take Achilles and turn him black. But let's continue, because the heart of the problem we still have to tackle. There has been a lot of backlash with both whitewashing and blackwashing, some arguments saying that the one is better than the other, and some saying they are both the same. Well, I wouldn't say they are exactly the same, because clearly whitewashing has been done for longer than blackwashing has, but I still think that fundamentally at their very core, they are still wrong. Just because whitewashing has historically done more damage to POC, it doesn't justify the usage of blackwashing. As an answer to that, 2 wrongs don't make a right. The answer is, let's leave people the way they are. Let's talk more about these minorities and their real stories, and let's create original characters that belong to them. That is the best option, particularly when we talk about history. Now, here is the kicker. Even for me, when playing a video game or watching a show, if a person that looks like me comes on screen, I'm beyond excited. That will be my favorite character, hands down, for the entirety of the show. Here's my question. Why? Why is it so? Why, if you are black, your favorite character has to be the black guy in the show? Why can it not be the Asian guy? Why can it not be the Hispanic guy? Why can it not be the white guy? I mean, I watched 4400, one of my favorite shows, 4 seasons, and guess who my favorite character is? This guy? No, Richard. Richard is my favorite character. But he has a great heart, he's a great character, he's very well written, he's very deep, courageous, brave, ready to sacrifice to defend his wife and kid. I mean, this guy is my favorite. Why would all of those wonderful elements, the personality, the intelligence, the badassness of a character be all overshadowed by the color of his skin? The very people that are fighting for integration, inclusivity, against racism are using a very similar basic concept as what the racists did, the skin, as the most important of all characteristics of a character. If he's not the same ethnicity as me, he's not my favorite. I don't like him. Now, I'm not gonna go too harsh on this article because it's written by a 15-year-old. That's what I noticed at the bottom. So I'm not gonna go try to debunk it or attack it. But I think it's poignant, the fact that it's written by a youth, because it gives us, and there are so many, I'm just reading one for obvious reasons. Time concerns, I can't make this video 2 hours long, but it's important. I think it's important because I think what we are teaching the kids with this new round of fixation on skin color and ethnic representation, we are teaching them that unless a character is the same ethnicity as you, you should be angry because you are misrepresented, and he cannot be your hero. You cannot identify with him, and you are really limiting the incredible power of imagination. When I was a kid, I thought I was Ryu from Street Fighter, and I wanted to dress up like him. I even started taking karate lessons because of him. Do you think the fact that he was Japanese ever stopped him from being my favorite character? There isn't one Italian character in Street Fighter until they come out with Rose. And then again, they call her Rose. I mean, why not calling her Rosa in Italian? They didn't even give her an Italian name, so is she really Italian? I don't know. But still, I never had a problem with that. And of course, people can say, yeah, but you're still light-skinned, so you're still represented by a light-skinned person, but he's Japanese. And the same situation happened when I was a teenager in the 90s with Bruce Lee. Every kid wanted to be Bruce Lee. And at the same era, you also had Muhammad Ali. Do you think I didn't think Muhammad Ali was absolutely badass? Muhammad Ali, black pugilist, Bruce Lee, Asian Kung Fu master, and then you had Chuck Norris, the white karateka or karate guy. It's not like as a kid I felt like I had to be Chuck Norris. Who gives a shit? I could have been Muhammad Ali for all I cared. If you had asked me back then who is coolest, I would have said Bruce Lee number 1, Muhammad Ali number 2, Chuck Norris number 3. I do understand that minorities have been underrepresented. It's a historical truth, and I don't deny historical truth. In fact, I strengthen and support the truth. But let's not twist things to the point that now we are teaching kids that if you're black, unless you see a black Viking represented in a TV show, then you cannot. You cannot play, you cannot use your imagination, or you cannot like the characters you see there because they are not the same as you. The solution to the problem is to stop looking at this guy's white, this guy's black, this guy's Chinese, this guy's Japanese, but to say, this guy's a human being. What am I? A human being. Great, he can be my favorite character. So these are the reasons behind my position, and these are the reasons behind the sort of content that I create. I hope that you appreciated this video, and I really hope that this can be used to finally, once and for all, prove that yes, I'm against both whitewashing and blackwashing, and yes, both exist. But it is also important to try and understand where both of these phenomena come from, because they do come from two different realities. Alright, noble ones, well, I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, please remember thumbs up, and if you're not yet members of this community, become a noble one. Subscribe to my channel for more content from the Metatron, and remember, the Metatron has spread his wings. Goodbye.